The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Stress to Logic and Firearm Mentor, your host, where our slogan is be ready, remain safe, stay sharp, and train for the moment that matters. Hopefully that moment never comes for you, but if it does, we offer training. Our websites are firearmmentor.com. That is firearmmentor.com, and stresstologic.com. That is STRESS, the number 2, logic, LOGIC.com. So check us out online, and we are on multiple social media sites. Not only YouTube, but we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Google, and one more that is escaping my brain. But in any event, we put out 2 videos a week. They're 1-minute-ish videos on all sorts of FAQs, things you might need to know, just like the radio show, but in a brief snippet. So if you're interested, you can always subscribe, like, share. I would absolutely love it. Thank you. I'm going to share with everyone a personal experience, actually a couple personal experiences that have happened to me regarding firearm safety in the past week or so. And the universe works in mysterious ways. My friend Chaim Edelstein, he's been on the show before. He does all sorts of planning and investments for life insurance, and he manages people's money risk. But he sent me a tweet moments before I was ready to record this, and the tweet says, it's from Wisconsin Right Now on X, the Milwaukee officer had a personal dash cam on his vehicle, and it recorded the entire incident. It is a textbook case of justified use of force, according to multiple sources. So the department, in this person's humble opinion, should release the video fast. Some jurisdictions do that. Anyone furthering the old hands up, don't shoot, he didn't have a gun false narrative will be contradicted by the video. Also, the offender pistol whipped and shot at the officer who was on his way to the police academy, where he is, get ready for this, a firearms instructor. So, there is a term out there, FAFO, it's fuss around and find out, except replace the word fuss with not a nice word. And this person, this offender, this justice-involved individual, FAFO'd into the wrong person. And while people who carry a firearm kind of are preparing for that day, and it's part of our logo or our mantra, which is train for the moment that matters. This Milwaukee officer, off-duty, I don't know if he was Milwaukee, it happened in Milwaukee, but the off-duty officer, he fatally shot the suspect, and this happened Friday morning at 8:30 in the morning. According to wearegreenbay.com, in addition to what I just said, the officer is on administrative leave after shooting and killing a suspect who allegedly attacked him following a minor traffic crash. According to a police report from the Milwaukee Police Department, an off-duty officer with the department got in a minor crash at 8:25 a.m. on the 4800 block of West Mill Road while he was on his way to work. Officials say that both the off-duty officer and other driver involved pulled over and exited their vehicles. While assessing the incident, the other driver allegedly approached the off-duty officer, pulled out a firearm, and proceeded to hit the officer in the face with the firearm. The off-duty officer was said to have then drawn his department-issued weapon and exchanged gunfire with the suspect, ultimately shooting him. The suspect, who was a 26-year-old man, was pronounced dead at the scene and is reported to be the only person shot in the incident. The off-duty officer was taken to the hospital for treatment of injuries stemming from the incident. Authorities say that this off-duty officer is a 40-year-old male who has over 21 years of service. He has since been placed on administrative leave, as is the company policy for officer-involved shootings. Officials report that video of the incident will be released in accordance with Standard Operating Procedure 575, and I really don't know what that is on their department. At this time, no other information is available when an investigation is going through the Milwaukee Area Investigative Team and the West Allis Police Department. What people don't know about my background is one of the departments I worked for, the Glencoe, Illinois Department of Public Safety, was an agency who was accredited by the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies to make sure that they are the cream of the crop. And you know who wrote all the policies for that agency? This guy. So, being very curious about police policy, you guys are very fortunate because I get to go through the policy, which is online. This policy was effective just July 17th, 2024. That doesn't mean that it was created then. It was issued prior to that. But the purpose is to foster greater trust in the Milwaukee Police Department and increase transparency with respect to department operations and the use of deadly force. And it goes on to continue the purpose, definitions, who's the next of kin, who's the officer, computation of time, release deadline, and this is what it says. The department shall release video evidence of the following types of incidents to the public within 15 days. Any officer-involved death, as defined in a different SOP, any other critical incident as defined in another SOP, and any incident involving the death of a person where a department member discharges a firearm, even if the death was not a result of the firearm discharge by the department member. The release shall, at a minimum, consist of relevant video footage that depicts the actions and events leading up to and including the officer-involved death, other critical incident or death, and relevant footage includes accompanying audio recordings. Video footage that is substantively duplicative or redundant need not be disclosed. That means if there's multiple camera angles, they don't have to disclose all of them. The policy shall not be construed to discourage or prevent the department from releasing video evidence prior to the deadline set forth above. So I have a feeling we're going to get the video, just not in time for this show. If we get it and it crosses my desk, I will be happy to analyze it for everyone. With that said, I took a couple people to the range this week, and one of them I'm going to talk about. Fantastic guy, absolutely brilliant guy. And if you would have asked him 5 years ago, he would have said ban all firearms. But some things changed his mind, including but not limited to October 7th. This man is an extreme advocate, and I don't mean extreme, I mean very positive force, very positive advocate in protecting the rights of Israel, protecting the rights of Jewish people. So I found it fascinating that I've taken him to the range a couple times, and it's kind of funny. I said to him, "Oh, look, I'm a missionary. You're converting." So this was an anti-gunner who started to dip his toe into the waters of firearms, and he's having a blast, pun included, pun intended. So last night, very, very simply, I took him to the range with a couple of .22 caliber rifles because we have gone through the handgun part, and we figured all right, hey, you want to learn about guns? Let's do rifles next. We're going to do another thing of rifles after that. And he's working his way up his skill level. And this is fun for him. He gets the adrenaline dump. He has fun. He was surprised at how fatigued he got because he's using muscles that typically he doesn't use. So here we are. We're at the range, and it was a father-son with us. And I go to RMG Guns. And their range is small. I love it. It's awesome. But it's a semi-trailer, and it's got 3 lanes in it. It's kind of tight quarters. But I will shoot there any day of the week. It's fantastic. It also is limited to 30 feet, which I know is a short distance for a rifle. But again, we were just having fun. And when I say messing around, I mean messing around safely. We're not really doing anything dangerous. we're just kind of experimenting, exploring. Guns are always pointed down range. In any event, this very, very nice father and son had a variety of firearms, including two one of them was a Smith & Wesson FPC in 9mm, and that is a 9mm carbine from Smith & Wesson, and then they also had a 5.7 carbine from Ruger. And so my friend said, "Oh, what are they shooting? What is that? What is that?" So we started talking to them, and everyone at the range typically is super, super nice and interactive and will help you. And he's like, "Oh, you're new? You want to shoot it? Come on, let's go. We'll shoot it." So he shot the FPC, the 9mm carbine, and he had fun with it because it's a fun gun. So he puts it down, and we're chatting. And I said, "So, do you feel dirty?" He's laughing. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "That's an illegal gun." "What?" Well, then I had to explain PICA, and we're grandfathered in as long as you registered the weapon ahead of time, and it was perfectly legal. But I was making a joke saying, "Oh my gosh, you must feel dirty like a prostitute because you're doing something not right." And it sparked a conversation. He says, "What makes this different? What makes this an assault weapon?" And the gentleman that we were with said it's just as deadly as the 9mm pistol sitting next to it, but because it looks scary and it's got a threaded barrel and it's got a folding stock, that makes it illegal. And my friend, who really was on the other side he was sipping the other Kool-Aid, not our Kool-Aid, but he was shocked. He's like, this is kind of ridiculous. And he's starting to see the ridiculousness of banning certain firearms. And I get the ridiculousness. And why is this happening? I said, because you have politicians who are not well versed in firearms or making firearms laws. Just like you have politicians who are well versed in other areas making abortion law, or not well versed in other areas, making laws on abortion, on taxes, on driving, on all sorts of things. These are elected representatives of the people, but the representation, sometimes there's a disconnect there. So it was very, very interesting, very enlightening for this guy. And I do private lessons all the time. So if you're interested, you can always reach out to me via my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, or MarcusMelnick.com. We're going to take a brief break so I can wet my whistle and get a drink of water, but I've got some other little interesting boots on the ground tidbits for everyone. Stand by. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. And we're back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick again from Stress to Logic and Firearm Mentor, your host, where we train people to be ready, remain safe, stay sharp, and train for the moment that matters. And one of the things that I do is I'm not just some guy that hung a shingle that likes guns. Everyone has to have a gun. No, I'm a small business professional. I interact, I network with other small business professionals, and that's why I have a plethora of people who I am associated with, attorneys, estate people, runs the gamut, real estate agents, and we meet regularly. And one of the things that we have to do in this meeting is give a short, very short elevator pitch. Who am I? What do I do? Etc. And I'm giving an opinion. I don't like elevator pitches. They're standard. Now, I will tell you that there are some great taglines that people use. I haven't found one yet that I can use in this 11-second introduction. Let me give you an example. There is a carpet cleaning company, and when the guy gets up, he says, "We don't cut corners, he pauses, and then the audience says, "Clean them." So I haven't gotten that interactiveness yet, but every time I get up in front of people and I give my elevator pitch, it's different each time. And I try to make it engaging, entertaining, and funny. And I did one last week, and I want to share it with my listeners. And this is actually true. I got up in front of people and I said, look, 30 years ago, I was present at a thwarted mass shooting. 30 days ago, I trained people at my synagogue to learn how to respond to an active shooter. Who were these people, you ask? They were the Hasidanders. Now, what is a Hasidander? It's someone, when they get up to leave, the usher stands up and says, "Hey, sit down there." So that's an old joke. I've been telling it since I was a kid. I worked it into my elevator pitch, and I shortened it to 11 seconds. I had it in front of me, so right now I drew it out a little bit longer because I was going off of memory. But that's what I do. I do active shooter response drills. If you are a religious institution, I would love to connect with you and help you and see what we can do to work with one another. Also, if you have small groups, the stress to logic part of my spiel or my menu of speeches that I can give is one of them is street smarts and fraud resistance for older Americans. And I'm speaking next month at such an organization called Hadassah, which is a charitable organization amid Jewish people. They have a luncheon once a month, and they've hired me as their speaker on how to train them to avoid scams, to avoid the whole AI voice cloning type stuff. And if you have such a group, please reach out to me. Next, I'd like to make a request from my listenership. I have a friend, and I've known him for a long time. He got involved in an incident, and when that happens, sometimes the police, instead of sorting out what they should do, what they shouldn't do, they just throw charges on everyone. So my friend got charged with aggravated battery, and he's very concerned about losing his firearm rights because it is a charge that has to do with violence. And the guy is on disability. He cannot afford an attorney. So if there are any defense attorneys that would like to help this disabled man navigate through the court system, please reach out to me at marcusmelnick.com. That is my electronic business card, so that I can connect the two of you. He is looking for someone to do pro bono work. And really, I've known the guy a while. He's a nice guy. If he was involved in an incident, I don't have the details of the incident, but it's very difficult for me to see that he was the initiator, instigator of the incident. So again, if you have or know of any defense pro bono attorneys, please reach out to me. I would love to make an introduction. And, I read things all the time. There is an article about 7 things that the government can do right now which would provide relief and advance the Second Amendment cause, all while constitutionally bypassing the current milquetoast Congress. And I read that. I don't even know what it means. But first is to reverse the 1989 semi-auto rifle import ban. And David Kadria outlines the problem, how President Trump can eliminate it with basically a signature. Further, it must be emphasized this poses no political danger for Trump or the GOP. It's guaranteed to be a major win. The other thing that the current administration could do would be to reverse the Obama-Hillary Clinton ban on importation of old surplus M1s and the like for the CMP, the Civilian Marksmanship Program. Once again, it's just a signature. The CMP, Civilian Marksmanship Program, is a program where regular people like you and me can go online and purchase actual World War II era and Korean War era firearms, and the M1 Garand is the rifle that was issued to United States soldiers during World War II. The other thing they can do is ban the Army Corps of Engineers from having the, quote, authority, end quote, to ban guns on public property. Again, just the signature is required. A simple order of the Army Corps of Engineers would do it. Next, reverse the Clinton ban on GIs carrying firearms on military bases. That's kind of not smart. Why wouldn't you want the military to carry a gun on their own base? But a pen, paper, and phone is all the president needs to reverse this. Number 5, appoint a full-time acting director to the ATF. As unconstitutional as the ATF is, There needs to be a full-time boss in hand to rein it in as much as possible. Currently, Daniel Driscoll is both Secretary of the Army and acting ATF Director, and no one can do those both jobs at the same time. The ATF needs its own full-time acting director. Again, it's a pen and paper and phone to arrange for the appointment of a full-time pro-Second Amendment ATF acting director. Next, President Trump can and must order, and this isn't my words, I'm reading over an article. President Trump can and must order Attorney General Bondi to send a team to ATF headquarters and destroy the National Gun Registry, which contains, at last count, around 1 billion with a B records in a digital database. It's not only unconstitutional, but also illegal per the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986. Finally, due to the Second Amendment Task Force not having any representatives from the Second Amendment groups, such as the National Rifle Association, Gun Owners of America, the Second Amendment Foundation, the Firearm Policy Coalition, or the National Association for Gun Rights, among many others, President Trump is encouraged to either reconstitute the Second Amendment Task Force or simply meet with representatives from the above-named groups and others on a regular basis, along with Attorney General Bondi, to come up with a pro-Second Amendment policy at all fronts, from executive orders to legislation to judicial cases and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting take on what our current nation is facing, and the reality is, I found another, this was an idiotic rant on Quora, but they were saying that Democrats would win a civil war. Well, first of all, a civil war is probably not going to be along party lines. It's going to be along issue lines, and that doesn't always align with the party. And this asinine opinion was that, well, cities are fortified. There's plenty of liberals and Democrats who own firearms, and I can vouch for that. I've had a ton come through my class. Again, I don't really care about politics. I'm just repeating what I've read and what I've seen, and I'm making fun of it, actually. And he said, yeah, everyone who owns a gun, most people are rural, and there's not as many people rural in the city. And in the city, you have all sorts of choke points, and you've got people to defend it. And quite honestly, we're talking about two militaries. We're not talking about some guy with a double-barrel shotgun who's lived on a farm all his life with a straw hat and chewing on a piece of grass. We're not talking about that. If there ever is a civil war or any war, it's going to be members of the military. It's probably not going to be members of the militia. Who are the militia? Well, the militia are you and me, regular citizens who step up in times of war, which was very prevalent through the 18th century, through the 19th century. In the 20th century, it started to get more organized into actually having militaries draft people, or people enlist in the military and then train and then go and fight. In the Revolutionary War, there wasn't basic training for Americans. In the Civil War, same thing. War of 1812, same thing. These were regular people that took up arms and defended against people that were a threat to the nation. So with that said, there's never going to be a civil war, and there's no geological or geographic division in the company or in the country like North versus South. Everyone is intermixed, and I kind of fear what's happening in Illinois. You've got federal agents coming in to do their jobs, and keep in mind, their jobs is not always just to deport people. Their jobs are to investigate human trafficking, take drugs off the street. They do that too. It's not just local police. And then you've got local politicians who are saying our police will not support the federal government if they come in. And then you've got other police officers or police administrators, boots on the ground, saying this is law enforcement. We support our brothers and sisters. They come here to do a job. We are not going to prevent them from doing their job. We're not going to stop them from doing their job. Some departments actually do not help the federal government. Now, there are some instances when that's appropriate. For example, you've got a federal probation officer or parole officer needs to check in on his parolees or probationees. They're not going to necessarily need local law enforcement, and local law enforcement doesn't do the follow-up after someone is released. If it's a federal crime, it's on the federal level. They don't get involved. So yeah, there are some instances where local police do not support federal law enforcement. But if federal law enforcement called for help, they'd come and help. That's what they're supposed to do. Everyone who works in a law enforcement capacity is legally in the United States, whether they are a citizen, and most of them are, or have a green card to be a permanent resident, which in Illinois, if someone is a permanent alien resident, not a citizen, they can still apply to be a police officer per state law. But federal agents are people too. They may call for assistance. They may call for help. You can't differentiate. There's some really awkward, and they're farce, 911 calls. And they're like, oh, have you considered making your gun a gun-free zone? That's a dispatcher trying to help. And it's comedy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being serious when I say this. But it's the same thing. If police ask for help, other police should be able to help them. Now, is their activity illegal? In this case, from what I've seen, no. But if it is, later on, everybody has a court date or due process to fight that charge in court in the next judicial system. The police operate out of the executive system. The courts operate out of the judicial system. So hopefully you gleaned something from this. We're going to be back next week with more boots on the ground information. We hope that you have a safe week. Remember, be ready, remain safe, stay sharp, and train for the moment that matters. This is Marcus Melnick wishing you a safe week. We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.